But last week, we all, for a lot of people, and I could just tell you in this room, I know, for a lot of people, the holidays are stressful. And last week, we talked about the ability to be loved, to walk into a room, any gathering, with the attitude of love. And if we walk in with the attitude of love, which is in, by the way, if you want to write this right beside that, 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. If you walk in with the attitude of love, then you can be patient and you can be kind in any situation that you walk into. And you may not always change or change some of the people that you have a hard time with, but you can change yourself. And if there is a chance for them to change, it's going to happen because you're loved more than if you're gripey or whatever. And we have to be the adult in the room, right? We have to be the adult in the room. And not just the adult in the room, because y'all know there are a lot of adults that don't act like adults. We have to be the adult that acts like the Christ-centered adult. And that's the thing that's going to change everything when we walk into a room with that kind of attitude of love. We need to be love. And then I think the second thing that's most important, if it's going to help us deal with the stuff that we deal with at this time of year and dealing with family and whatnot, is we have to learn to be a more positive person. Now, I just want to tell you something. Positivity is not something that comes natural. Some of you guys, you have personalities that lean toward being positive than negative. Some of you have a more melancholy personality, and it's easier for you to go negative. It's easier. You'll probably struggle more with depression because of that and anxiety because of that. But some of that's just personality-wise. But if we can learn to be more positive, we can change everything. We can change everything. It's the positive attitude that changes. And really, there's only one way to be positive. We have to have a positive attitude of gratitude. And here's what I know. As someone who has been a person now I'm in my 60th year, and for someone who's counseled lots of people that struggle with different things, you've got to understand this. You can crush negativity, disappointment, and judgment if you just replace whatever attitude you have with an attitude of gratitude. An attitude of gratitude. You just want to know a secret. If you want right now to just walk right out of here and not stay for the next 2 hours of this message, you will know. Not really. Some of you were already asleep, so you didn't even catch me saying that. So. But if you can do that, and that's what I thought. I came across that video and I thought, how cool is this? But we all have things that we struggle with. I was talking to my wife's uncle the other day. He's 83. He just outlived Lisa's dad. And we were talking about the importance of just enjoying every single day. Every single day. And how important is that? Today might be the last. Today might be the last. And if it's not, you don't want to be a miserable so-and-so until you do get to the last. You know what I'm saying? So learning how to have that right kind of attitude. And that attitude never really has anything to do with your circumstances. I know that's the first place we go. Well, this happened to me and this happened to me. And why did she get that promotion? And why did this happen? And why does mom love her best? All those other kind of things. But attitude of gratitude is so powerful. Matter of fact, I love Zig Ziglar. Any Zig Ziglar fans in here? Here's what Zig Ziglar wrote. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude for what you have, the more likely you will have more to express gratitude for. Hang on to that for just a second. As a counselor, when I would be dealing with somebody with depression or someone who was struggling with a teenager that was just completely off track, I would ask, well, what are some things right now you have to be thankful for? And immediately they go, oh, nothing. Everything just goes, there's nothing good in my life. Nothing's good. And no, just think of it. You want to know the secret of finding things to be thankful for? Ask God. Just ask Him. when you're laying in bed at night and it's been a painful day and you're really struggling and you're worried about what's happening tomorrow or not going to happen tomorrow or whatever, just go, God, forgive me for being so selfish. Forgive me for thinking about myself more than I think about you. Lord, would you help me out here? Would you point out the things in my life that I can be thankful for? Because God knows. You know your kids more than anything. You know when you're talking to your kids, even though they're kind of wacky in what they're saying and what they're thinking, because you know different, because you're seeing it from the outside. And it's easy for you to go, you can be thankful for this and you can be thankful for this. And how's your kid going to respond? Oh, because when we start comparing what we can be thankful to everyone else, how many times has somebody said, I remember when I was a kid, I don't know, what did y'all's mom say when you didn't eat dinner? Huh? In China. See, in our generation, it was China. The generation right behind us, it was Russia. It's Africa somewhere. It's somewhere. But it's like, in my answer, because I was kind of a smart aleck, well, let's mail it to them then. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was my answer to that, because really when it gets to comparing, we don't do comparison well. We don't compare down well. Well, look at the poor kids in China. And we don't compare up well. Well, look what he gets and what I don't get. We don't. The only place we have to go is to look inside ourselves and see who we are. And the best way for us to realize what we need to be grateful for is to ask God, God, would you just show me? Just show me. And he will. And that's when you'll start going toward positive. You'll start going toward positive. We can think, man, I've had such a tough life. But golly, I'm going to make a comparison. We're wealthier than 95% of the people on the planet, no matter how poor you are in this room. You are. But you've got to ask God to point that out to you. So look what Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians 5:18. He says, be thankful in what? All circumstances. You know what that means? It doesn't just mean be thankful if you get a Hot Wheels instead of a such and such. It means be thankful when things go bad and things go good, because that's all circumstances, right? Now think about if you're thankful, what kind of an attitude, if you're handling a problem that's stressing you out greatly, is it helping you any to go negative? No, and nobody wants to be around you. Nobody. But if you can go positive, not only will it have a positive effect on you and the way you handle it and help clear your head a little bit, but as a Christ-like adult, it will make an impact on the people that are watching you. Wow, how are you handling that so well? Well, you're going to know here better in a minute when I get just to a list of things that we have to be thankful for no matter what's going on in your life. In the Message version of this, it's be cheerful no matter what. Pray all the time. Thank God no matter what happens. This is the way God wants you to belong, who belong for Jesus Christ, to live. God wants us to live this attitude of gratitude. But here's the deal we got to realize, and this is why when God says, and we want to go, well, golly, God, how can I feel like this right now? You can, but only if you're getting out of the natural. Because here's what happens naturally. It goes against our nature, our self-centered, focused nature to be grateful. It goes against our nature. I mean, we look for things that to get ticked off about. We look for things to think, woe is me. We look for things, especially when we're in a certain type of attitude that makes us feel kind of like a victim. So I just did I love just Googling every once in a while a question, So I Googled, what would it be like? What kind of a person would you be? How would you behave if you were more positive? Okay, so I got an article from Psychology Today, and here's some things. And I think you'll relate to these things. And I relate to these things. They're not unchristian because they're in Psychology Today. Look what it says. If you are more positive, you will be more honest. You'll be more honest. You'll be more loyal. You want people around you. The people, when you hire people, when you have people around you, look for people that are more grateful and that are more positive and feel better about life. People that feel better about life are more respectful because they're not feeling like they have to be better than you. So they'll respect you for who you are. And look, if you want to learn a trait that will help you get along with people, every time you get to know somebody, think about what you can learn from this person. Because guess what? You know what that person's favorite topic is? Themselves. You're a pilot? Boy, that's kind of cool. Were you afraid the first time you flew? You know, what happens when you know what I'm saying? You start talking to somebody about themselves. Doesn't matter what they are. You're more respectful when you're more positive and more responsible. You're more responsible. You're going to have more energy. People are going to be able to count on you because you're a positive person who has an attitude of gratitude. And humility. Humility comes with gratitude. Humility comes with gratitude. Compassionate. When you feel, this is what I tell people all the time. If you can accept if you can accept God's love so much that it fills you up, and it will. If you continually allow God and accept God's love, it will fill you up to such a point you will overflow loving other people. And you can do that because you're not worried about losing that love, or you're not worried about having to get your love from that other person. You be more compassionate. You're also more courageous. You watch a football game. I'm watching Notre Dame last night. And I don't know if you are football fans or whatever, but I like watching the psychology of the game that's going on. And if you were watching that game in the first quarter last night, you'd have thought, what is up with Notre Dame? They are just flat. It was psychological. It was all psychological. And then something happened that got him excited. All it took was one major play to just turn that around. That's how we are in our lives all the time. If we're doing these game changer plays, if we're doing things, if you want to become a more grateful person, go help somebody else out. Don't be a victim. Don't sit around and go, woe is me. If you want to get over woe is me, you go help your neighbor. If you want to get over woe is me, right now we're collecting warm clothes and stuff for the homeless that Love in Action is going out and serving. And I always try to make sure we don't take the easy way out. If you can go out with them on a Sunday, they go out Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And this time of year when it's going to be so rough, you go out there with them. Even you've gone out there a bunch of times. Is it much more fulfilling for you to go out there and do that than for you to just bring a coat and put it in here and never see those people, right? Those people talk to you. Those people hug you. And they're real live, honest to goodness people that are struggling. And does it turn your day around? You feel like all of a sudden you have more energy and everything. That's that attitude that comes. If you want to change, if you want to get out of this natural, then you got to go forward and do things, and you'll become more generous also. And the cool thing, the reason you can do this is that the Holy Spirit empowers you to choose gratitude during the good times and in the bad. The natural, the ingratitude that we have causes so many problems in our life. And the worst one that it causes is we have a hard time seeing God's grace. God's grace. That's powerful. Now, sometimes I like putting things together and see how this sounds to you. All right? Let's talk about changing things. If we're going to change things and we're going to change to that attitude of gratitude, I just kind of thought, how do we make this happen? First of all, I think you think grateful thoughts. Royal, I can't think of any. No, think of something. Just something. Okay, my heater's working. Oh, no, it's not now. Okay, then think of something else. Think of something to be grateful for. And if you can't, then ask God. If you can't, then ask your spouse. If you can't, then ask your kids. Ask somebody. Think grateful thoughts. Feel joyous and peaceful emotions. We went and held our new grandbabies yesterday. You can't help but almost bawl. My daughter-in-law watching me here goes, Dollie's about to cry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, but think grateful thoughts, feel joyous and peaceful emotions. So the things that you think affects the way you emote or you have feelings. And then follow that with unselfish actions and developed the habit of gratitude. The habit of gratitude. The things we do, we develop into habits. And if we get to where that just becomes something that we do, what will happen is we'll get better at it and better at it and better at it. Thankfulness is not situational. Thankfulness, gratitude, it comes from the inside. It's what's going on inside of you. And you can be that even in the middle of the hard times. Look at Romans 8:28a. A lot of you are familiar with this verse, but this is the Amplified version. And I'm not sure what just happened to that screen. I was having all kinds of technical difficulties with that yesterday. All right, look on your notes. Look at Romans 8:28a, Amplified version. And we know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, causes all things to work together as the plan. It's the plan. It's the plan that God's putting together. And what God does is, look, I'm just going to, because how many of y'all had something bad happen to you this last year? Something bad, something that hurt your feelings, something that made you cry, somebody died, somebody whatever. We all did, and none of us liked it. Did anybody like it? Nobody liked it. Nobody liked it. And what we have to be careful of as Christians is oftentimes we'll use this verse as a kind of a, we have certain verses we like to pull out of our pocket because they're easy to say. And this one often comes out wrong. This one always comes out something like this. Well, everything happens for a reason. That's not what this verse means. This verse means something just happened and God wants to use that to make it part of the plan. He wants to use the good and he wants to use the bad. And if you start thinking that way, now it doesn't always, you're grieving, you just lost somebody close, but the more you start thinking along those ways, the more you get an opportunity. I had a lady one time I was counseling that had an abortion 20 years before then. And some of you in here may have had an experience with that. And it's very painful. And oftentimes the years after that are painful. And this lady was struggling. I wonder if he'd be in college right now. I wonder if I'd have grandkids right now. And was just kind of thinking through all of this kind of stuff. So we're working, and I was teaching them some of the things I teach y'all about trying to get through that and gain strength from that. Remember, this is 20 years later. It just hit. She was in a grocery store and saw a kid like in college, and it just hit her. That could be my kid, So she was going through this thing, and we started talking about that, and then and she was already really close to me. This isn't a good thing to just walk up to someone you don't know very well and try to give them coaching. I said, as she's working through this, I think God's going to use this for you. Really? And she's teared up. I think all of this pain, everything that's happened up this time, God's going to use this to do something. And I'm thinking along these lines of this verse. That week, she is standing in the grocery store. You know how they have all the newspapers, the magazines, so-and-so divorced so-and-so and all this other kind of stuff. And while they're standing there, there was an article there about somebody who had an abortion. And she turned around, she's looking at it, and she looked at the lady behind her, and this lady was staring at that magazine. And she just went, "Are you okay?" She goes, "I went through that 10 years ago. And it's bothered me ever since. And now it's even bothering me more than it did back then." And she goes, "Hey, you want to go have coffee?" And that became a ministry. And she helped this other lady heal through that kind of pain. You see what I'm talking about? Now, when you're in the middle of pain, never walk up to somebody right smack in the middle of grief and go, "Oh yeah, I know how you feel. God's going to use that." First of all, never say, "I know how you feel." Let's just say, would you just promise you're never going to say to somebody, "I know how you feel"? If you do, call me and I will come slap you personally. You never know how somebody else feels. It doesn't matter if they're going the exact same thing on the same day. You know, you could be a quarterback who broke his leg years ago. Did y'all see that story on the Washington Redskins? That quarterback that broke his leg last week? It was on the anniversary of Joe Theismann breaking his leg the exact same way so many years ago, you know? But he still couldn't walk up to, Joe Theismann couldn't come up to him and go, I know exactly how you feel. You never know how somebody's feel. There's so many things at play in there. And I hung on that a long time. I apologize for that. But that is some very important stuff for you to understand. And look at the second part of this verse. For good, it works for the good, for those who love God, to those who are called according to his what? Plan and purpose. Plan and purpose. I love, my favorite sport is football. Now, I like full contact. I like that. But you know what I love most about football? I think it's one of the greater team sports on the planet. Every single, and no matter where you're at on the field, if you're on that field, you're going to have something to do with making that play successful or not. And that's how God uses Christians. We all. This morning, if you're an LCC volunteer, you serve in some capacity, we have the ability now on our database to shoot out an email an email or a text. And I shot out a text today and I said something like, hey LCCers, this is Royal. Be sure to check in this morning when you get to Life Connection Church on your Facebook page, because you have friends out there who are thinking about going to church, and they might, anyway, y'all know the gist on that. And God uses all of us to work toward his plans. We're a part of his plans. Where we screw up is we go, well, our plans. God didn't work our plans out right. No, he's working out his plans. And the cool thing is, we don't always know what his plans are. Did anybody this year know what God's plans were all the time? If you did, come talk to me, because I want to hear. But God's got all these plans for us, and what he does is he uses every little thing. He uses a thing that you say to somebody, and then they run into Kevin, and Kevin says something to somebody, and then somebody does some kind of deed of kindness, and they've got and then they hear them talking about their church. And Mark told me a few weeks ago about, y'all were in a shopping center up here, in a boutique or something, and these two ladies were talking, and somehow church came up as a conversation. And the lady, she was probably in her 20s. Weren't they younger adults? And the lady turns to Mark and said, well, what church do y'all go to? And he goes, we go to Life Connection Church. And she goes, Royal. He goes, what? She goes, Royal. I watch his videos. Yeah, that's Life Connection Church. Never been in here. But the impact of other people sharing that and doing that has an impact on somebody. So that's the point I'm trying to make. No matter what happened, God uses all your personal stuff. He uses the relationship you had with your parents, the relationship you have with your kids, the so-and-so dying, you losing your car, you losing your job. All of those things God uses, because he can do that because he's God. Are you tired of me talking about that topic? Look at this next. God fits our life situations, good and bad, into the good plan. Look, say this with me. That does not end on earth. It doesn't end on earth. Now, I don't know this guy. Now, I read a book on heaven that this guy had done all this research, and it seems as if we're going to recognize people in heaven. Something in Scripture somewhere says that we're going to recognize people in heaven. And so I've always thought, how cool would it be if somebody walked up and said, you remember me? I said, no, I don't. Dude, I'm here because of you. Really? What? Well, do you remember when you told so-and-so something, and then that lady got baptized, and then she was friends with my aunt who knew my grandmother, who met my stepsister in a parking lot? And God, who knows? Who'd have known all of that stuff? But that's what God does. And you know, how cool would it be? Because you don't know. Some of you may be thinking, you know, I've been doing God stuff for a while. I've been out there helping people and being nice and doing all this other kind of stuff. And I don't really see that anything has come of it. So I'm just not doing that. And you know, sometimes I do nice things for people and they just spit in my face. Can I tell you something? It's kind of cool. It's gross, but it's kind of cool if somebody spits in your face when you do something nice. You know? Maybe that'll be the person that comes up to you. Hey, you remember you did that thing nice for me, and then you mentioned Jesus, and I spit in your face? I'm here because of you. Isn't that incredible? I mean, that's what, if you ever just dig into what that means in Romans 8 and why God does all that kind of stuff, he's doing all that stuff and we just don't get that. Sorry, move on to the next. Because of our faith, Romans 5:2 says, Christ has brought us into this place of what? Undeserved privilege. Undeserved privilege. That doesn't mean he's going to make you rich, as some people try to teach you he's going to. That doesn't mean he's necessarily going to heal you of a disease. It doesn't. Undeserved privilege is forever God's child, whether it's here or in heaven. My friend Angela died last week. The one with cancer in Maryland, my favorite Washington Redskin fan. She didn't get to see Cowboys whoop the Redskins from here. And I don't know if she even cared. I wonder if God gave her a home that was purple and maroon. And you know what I'm saying? But watching her go through what she went through and the many people that she made an impact on. You know why? She knew that she had an undeserved privilege. She was going to be there. So because of that, she was confident and joyfully looking forward to sharing in God's glory, in God's glory. And then verse 3, and we can rejoice too when we run into problems. Y'all love to hear that. We can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us, say it with me, develop endurance. Don't we all need to develop endurance? We all need it in all kinds of ways, but we need it in our faith greatly. You will never, if you're thinking, you know, I've been a Christian since I was 20 years old and I just don't get it. I've never really taken that next step of faith. I've never really gotten to that next level. Unfortunately, this has got to happen. You have to develop that endurance. That comes from you stepping out in faith and doing things in faith and getting stronger so that when something else happens, you go, oh, I've already handled this level of faith. I can do this level of faith. And you're the one that's got to make that happen. Look at verse 4. And endurance develops a strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope and salvation. Now, I'm just going to tell you 5 things from these 2 verses that I just shared with you. 5 reasons to choose gratitude. Matter of fact, if you will just write these 5 things down, next time you're feeling terrible, pray to God and say, God, would you please point out the things in my life that I need to be grateful for, but I'm giving you a head start. Here's 5 things that will never change. They will never change. The only reason they would even change or be different in your mind is if you thought at them. If you look at these with a negative attitude, you won't see what they're good for. But if you look at this with an attitude of gratitude, I promise you, it will lift you up. It will lift you up. Number 1, you are a person of great value. Remember I told you what's our number 1 topic we like to talk about? Us. Well, here's the deal. Now you can openly talk to anyone else and care more about them than you care about yourself. You know why? Because you are a person of great value because of what God feels about you. Because God sent Jesus Christ as a sacrifice for you. God brought us into this place of undeserved privilege. Number 2, You are unconditionally loved. Why is that so important? You don't have to have the love of somebody else to feel loved. You don't. Anybody can dump you, hurt you. Believe me, I've been loving on people professionally now for years. Does that sound right? And sadly enough, some of the people that I've loved on the most have not turned out to be the nicest people toward me. But that's okay, because that's not where I get my love. Doesn't mean I don't still get my feelings hurt and all, but when you realize you have that kind of love, you can give that away. Thirdly, you are guilt-free. You are guilt-free. Oh, that means I get to do anything I want to. I'm guilt-free. No. You will suffer the consequences of the things that you do wrong. You can be guilt-free and be in prison. You can be guilt-free and be divorced. You can be, and what that means is, it doesn't mean that you didn't do something wrong. What it means is that you're forgiven because of Jesus Christ because of that. But if you screw up, you can still lose your marriage. You can still end up in jail. You can still do something stupid and run your car off a bridge. Anything like that can happen. But you're guilt-free. And what happens is the pressure, the main thing you ought to feel with God is this: conviction. Now, if you're not very close to God, you won't feel conviction. The Bible calls that a hardening of the heart. So you can do really terrible things as a Christian, and if you're not very close to God, may not even feel the conviction at all. But when you're close to God, this is why I tell people, I just watch. It's one thing to miss church 1 week, to miss church 2 weeks. By the time a person has missed church 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, there's a really good chance they're not coming back. Because that pull they don't feel anymore because of the hardness. But when you're close to God, as soon as you do something that God doesn't like, you feel it. I got to go back and say sorry to that person. I got to go back. And your wife's go, oh, it's okay. You didn't know. No. You can go with me if you want to, but I got to go back and say I'm sorry to that person. Or I got to go back and make that better. Or I got to go back and give a better tip. Or maybe that person thought, by the way that person looked, and that's that conviction. That's that conviction. And I told y'all, when I really devoted my life to Christ, I became a crier. That's when I became a crier. I cry when good things happen to you. I cry when bad things happen to you. I cry when I hurt you. I cry when somebody else hurts you. And it drives me nuts. I hate sitting next to my wife like this so she doesn't see that I'm choking up, But that's what comes with it. And what I find is when there are times when I'm farther away from God, the crying isn't so much. And the feelings aren't so much, because God uses your feelings. The Spirit uses feelings for that. Number 4, you don't have to worry because God is in charge. You don't have to worry because God's in charge. And again, we need each other for this encouragement, to keep reminding each other of these things. And number 5, your purpose in life, you ready, is greater than you could imagine. Like I said, I told you that story a little while ago about ending up in heaven. You had no clue. We have no clue. There are so many things in life that we don't have a clue that's going on. And God's going to use all of them. God's going to use all of them. Life is better when you have a habit of gratitude. One is you have victory over your negative emotions. You have victory over your negative emotions. You will always be tempted to go negative. And again, that's why we need each other. Husbands and wife, let me tell you something, because this is very hard. I'll just give you an example. Last night, I was putting up Christmas lights, and Lisa came out. Is Lisa in here? She's not in here. You are? All right, I'll tell the cleaner version. One of the greatest things that men want from their wives, they've done a lot of research on this. Men wants to believe they're their wife's hero. That's why they don't ask for instructions when they're driving, and that's why they do stupid things, and they just want their wife to go along. Well, last night we were putting lights up, and I was putting the lights up on the house, and we had 2 strands of lights that were out, and Lisa came up and said, she started to pick up those lights, and I said, hey, those are burned out. We can't use those. And she goes, okay. So I turned around. When I turned back, she was checking them. She was checking them. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I told her they weren't working, and she was click, click. Like, you know, and you know what I did? I went, honey, thank you so much for following up and making sure that I'm not just an idiot. No, I got mad. I got ticked. And you followed me up. I just told you this. And she's going, be quiet. The neighbors are out. So you know what I'm saying? And then later on, I went, what is wrong with me? And I went and said, I was sorry. I'm going to try to be happy and all that other kind of stuff. But it's that feeling of gratitude that will overcome those emotions. If you feel good about who you are and where you are with God, your wife can double check you out. And at first you'll bow up just a little bit. And then you'll say, thank you, honey, do it again. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it's all about. So thank you for being here, Lisa, and allowing me to use that illustration. But you'll always be tempted to go negative. But stay positive. Number 2, you will have better relationships. If you've got a habit of gratitude, then you're going to have better relationships. You're going to be able to handle the ups and downs. And again, because you get that comfort from God. Number 3, you're going to have more energy. Y'all know when you feel better, you have more energy, don't you? You know, like when the weather's just perfect. Any guys in here, y'all know what football weather is, right? And girls, when you walk outside and you go, this is football weather. It's about 65 degrees. There's a little bit of moisture in the air, and you can play like crazy and have all the energy in the world. That's what happens when you feel good about life and having an attitude of gratitude. Is every single day can be like football weather. That was a good illustration, wasn't it? I like that one. Okay. More energy, less illness. A lot of our illnesses come from anxiety and stress. More physically active. You will do more. You will move more. You will do more things. You'll do more things, including taking care of and being good with other people. More joy in your life. You know, joy comes from the inside. It really has nothing to do with what goes on the outside. Happiness comes from the word happenstance. That means your happiness comes from whatever's going on around you. If you have something that makes you happy, but joy comes from the inside. You're going to have better sleep. You're going to feel more comfortable about life. You will be a more generous person. And next is, what you are most grateful for cannot be taken away. That's the part I'm talking about. When I listed off all those things we are with God just a little while ago, that's the most important thing. Now, if you take all those 9 things, here is the bonus. You ready? Here's the bonus. You will get caught up in your worship for God due to a stronger sense of His presence. I went through this the other night after hanging out with our little grandbabies, and I remember coming home, and I was laying there next to Lisa, and we were watching something on Netflix, and I just kind of leaned over her shoulder, and I went, man, aren't we blessed? Aren't we blessed? You feel really, really, really good when you feel that and when you understand that. So how about you? Because this is something you can practice. You can take this and you can look at this and you can look at these scripture, and this is something you can apply directly to your life, and not so that you'll change one day. You know, you're not going to have to start a diet here and in 90 days lose 4 pounds today or gain 7 pounds. Today, you can start living a grateful life. And you can walk out here with an attitude of gratitude. And when you're men, when you decide to gripe at your wife because she told you missed that turn, just think, I'm so grateful to have you, honey, telling me that I missed my turn. That changes everything. It changes it today. You don't have to change it later.